comes a time when you graduate and you start filming vlogs within vlogs. Let's see how this goes. But I do want to share some book mail. So it's funny because things were getting marked as delivered in my apartment and nothing was being delivered. And it was all by USPS. And I was like, what is going on? Because I also got someone's like New Yorker in my little cluster box. And I was like, I don't know. I was just very confused. And a couple of books had gone missing. I ordered a bunch of stuff from like Blackwell's and I hadn't gotten it. And then they sent all of it together. But they had been marking it delivered. This was like a week ago. But we got Notes on Heartbreak by Annie Lord. I feel like you can tell from the type of videos that I film that I deeply like anti-romances, and so I'm curious to see. I've heard a lot of mixed things about this, but I wanted to just see for myself. We got a textbook, Autism. This was the one that I was most upset about because I got it from thrift books, and I feel like when they say they have good editions of certain books and then it gets lost. This pretty copy of At the Bottom of the River. It's a collection of short stories. I'm really excited to get into it, and it's in perfect condition. Wow, what a pretty cover. Love. And we got a pretty edition of Winter. I just finished Autumn, and my Autumn cover is a little bit different than this one, but I really like these editions. So I think I have Spring as well, but I guess Summer I'll get with this one, and I'll have a mismatched collection, and then I'll see if I want to do a completist sort of revision of the books that I own. Oh, and then I got Happy Couple by Nisha Dolan. So I am currently listening to Exciting Times, which is her debut novel, I think, and I am enjoying it so dang much. There is something about how, and I think this is true of like a lot of Irish authors, at least this is the trend that I'm noticing, is that the way that they critique the sort of webbings of interpersonal relationships is so unrelenting. I don't know, it's just so incisive, and it's delivered with like the driest, most deadpan humor. I am addicted to it. I love it so much. So I started listening to, I feel like I started listening to Exciting Times, or maybe I had requested it at the same time that I had requested this one, because I just saw really great reviews on Goodreads for it. And I'm happy to say that Nisha Dolan is that girl. I feel like she's right up there with Megan Nolan for me. I feel like I feel like this is less triggery because Acts of Desperation, it's like in a camp onto itself. But yeah, I mean, not this one, but Exciting Times, I'm really enjoying that one. That one is about a 20-something, an early 20-something who moves to Hong Kong to teach English, and she comes from like a working class family but finds herself in relationship with a lot of wealthier people. So first she meets this guy Julian, they start sleeping together, and then all of a sudden she's moving into his apartment, so they move very quickly, and she's constantly sort of interrogating the dynamics of power within their relationship. He takes a business trip, and then our girl meets Esther. Is her name Esther? I can't remember the girl's name, but she meets this other chick and she develops a crush on her, and then they become involved, and their relationship moves very quickly but in different ways. And then she's sort of comparing sort of like the dynamics in heterosexual partnerings versus like sapphic partnering, and it's just so, I love it. Couldn't stop listening. Yeah, so I'm excited to finish that one, and then we're gonna start this one. I remember in that video where I had read Trespasses and had asked for some recommendations, a lot of you mentioned The Happy Couple, but it's not out in the US yet. So very grateful to Echo for hooking our girl up. Make this like a little Irish reading vlog. Let me go hop over to my ACOTAR reading vlog, but you and I will chat in a little bit. I've been on my like filming simultaneous things kick, so in case this outfit looks familiar, that's why. But we have started Happy Couple. I just finished reading, like I mentioned before, Exciting Times. I don't know if it's about like listening to her on audio, and now that I think about it, there are very few Irish books that I have read physically. Like I read, what's this book called? Acts of Desperation physically, and I read Trespasses physically. But a lot of the Irish books that I have read, I've listened to on audio, and I really enjoyed the cadence and the sort of, I don't know, there's like a specific grammar to Irish speak. And I think I was finding myself getting like a little bit confused. And it's funny because in Exciting Times, syntax and how language is structured is interrogated a lot, and she investigates that a lot, and she's very interested in how language works. That was just something interesting that I find myself like going over parts again and again, because I'm just like, How? But that also might just be a me thing. So yeah, this is a story about Luke and Celine. Luke and Celine were dating after Celine had broken up with her previous partner, Maria. Luke and Celine were in this lukewarm relationship where he was constantly like, I'm not looking for anything serious. I'm not really looking for a relationship. And then at some point she's like, all right, well, if you're not looking for something serious, then we're not going to continue together. It was sort of calling out his constantly saying contrarian things to what he wants. And then eventually they're like, I guess we're getting engaged. That's what's happening. And so now they're engaged. In general, her explorations are about like how we come together, the forms that intimacy takes. We start to see the dynamics around the people in their lives at their engagement party. So we're seeing his friends come in, we're seeing Luke's ex Archie, and there's something that happens there with them. Luke completely disappears from his engagement party. I think what I'm really liking about this book, and something that I more in general like about Dolen's writing, is that she sort of like pins up the expectations and scripts in being in a relationship with man and being in a relationship with woman, and then she sort of like pulls and teases this apart in a really just like compelling way. That's like my favorite thing. It's something that was very present in exciting times as well. Really cool. And then I mentioned this last time, but I also, not only does she sort of look at the differences in being relationship with man and woman, but she also is really astute in how she looks at all of the stuffing that like threatens to come out of the little confine of a relationship. Or not threatens, that does come out. She's so good at like mapping all of the veins, and in the way that she, I don't know, calls things out. I can't explain it, but it's really good. And the writing is also just like beautiful. Her tone was diagnostic. Beautiful. Here she's talking about sound. Celine is a musician, and it's also really interesting. I used to say with a lot of fervor and a lot of backing to the statement that I could not read about music and I can't read about dancers. And I think I've tried to read books in that vein and it has just been a miss for me. But the way that Dolen talks about, and you know who else does it pretty well? Brandon Taylor. But yeah, the way that she talks about music is very, I was gonna say tolerable, but that's not the word. It's enjoyable. She talks here, the notes slurred out nice and easy. All the vibrations kind of melted together and it was smooth and creamy and deep. Maybe it's because people maybe try to make it abstract. Something about how she does this works for me. This is the part where like all of a sudden marriage is on the table, or they're like contemplating marriage, and this is a kind of really like under the flap interrogation that she does. So they're talking about like, what would be your deal breaker in a relationship? Luke says, I mean, it sounds old fashioned, but if I thought we'd never get married, or that level of commitment, if I knew that wasn't going to happen, then yeah, in theory. And she said, when you say it won't happen, who's decided? I didn't say that. If you're a mind reader, you know that's going to cause way more problems than it solves. I didn't say it won't, Luke trailed off. I mean, but it won't though. Marriage will never happen between us. And that's not a problem necessarily. It would be silly to stop when it's going well, but we're not going to end up together. A pause for which Celine felt responsible. Celine said at last, if you really think that, we should break up right now. No response from Luke. She added, by your own criteria. Silence. But, Celine said, sometimes you say things because you want me to contradict you. And it's fine if you don't and you want me to agree. Still no answer. Tell me what to say, she said. Say what you want. I guess one of us has to. Like, I think back a lot to when you said you didn't want a relationship. And I said, eventually I want one with someone, but not a guy I've just met, so for now we're good. Then later I said, if you still didn't want anything serious, we should stop. And you said you changed your mind. Sometimes I think you always wanted to be with me, you just couldn't acknowledge it until I did. Another pause. If I need to say things aloud before you'll even say them in your head, Celine said, then that's not my favorite quality of yours. It's not an aspect I'd bring to a desert island if I can only take 3. But I'd still have a hard time choosing. Actually, I'd find it impossible picking only 3 things. Probably I love all of you, and I think for me that means I want to be with you forever. Then Luke asked. So I don't know, it kind of feels like there's a bit of inertia, but it's also so incisive. And that tension of like passivity and like hot strikes is really, I feel like that's what this feels like, and that's why it's so just like compelling and interesting to me. But yeah, we're very early in. It's not a lengthy book, but yeah, pretty early in, so I'm gonna keep reading this. Very much enjoying this. The only thing that's sort of deterring me from moving through this a little bit quicker is that I am also currently rereading this. So I'm kind of just like juggling this, and I will be very candid, this is like not letting me go, and this is my second read of it, but I'm trying to be disciplined and read both. But this is also, it's like wonderful to take a break. I don't need many breaks from this, but it's wonderful to take a break and then slip into something so beautifully written and interesting in what it's tackling. Yeah. did get book mail. I got it from Asher House. I don't remember having requested anything specifically, except for every time they like put out their influencer mailing list, I always ask for Alba de Céspedes' books because she's coming out with another notebook, or there's like another print coming out, but then I also haven't read Forbidden Notebook yet, and I keep meaning to like buy it, so I wonder if it's this. Or maybe I did request an Asher House, but I just don't remember. I don't know. Oh, you know what? There's a book. Hold on. It might not be that. It might be another book. I can't open this. Oh, no, it is Alba. That's so sweet. Her Side of the Story, a novel. Blurbs by June Palihiri, Annie Ernaux, and then some other journalists. This is chunky though. Oh, cute. It has a little postcard in it. That is very cute. A story of great love and crime. I didn't realize there was a crime twist to it, and not a crime girly, but no. Blurb by Elena Ferrante. I have a modest list that I call books of encouragement. One of these is Her Side of the Story by Alba de Céspedes. Very excited. Okay. So it is a couple of days later. We have finished The Happy Couple, and I love Nisha Dolan. I really love her. Essentially, this book it kind of feels like a telenovela, but way more introspective and reflective and smart and very interested in human behavior, the things that motivate us. Actually, we have Luke and Celine. They have this weird, I called it inertia before, but the genesis of their relationship is like founded on an ultimatum, because it wasn't like an active yes on both of their parts. It was never just two people understanding each other emotionally and disclosing with each other emotionally and being vulnerable with each other and arriving at that in an active way. It was sort of just like this weird wordplay chess game that ended up in a proposal. And then from there, we sort of see all of the characters fill in around the perimeters and peripheries of their lives. We see how all of these lives are interwoven together. We see different perspectives around these two people in this relationship. We see how everyone has their version of the story and everyone has their own harms that they bring to relationship. In the end, we're sort of like counting down to the minute of when the wedding will happen and if it will happen. It talks about loneliness. It talks about the sort of negotiations that we make to avoid confrontation, not just with others, but also with ourselves. It talks about being an active versus passive force in your life, what the costs are when we avoid that confrontation, what the costs are when we appear to be a little bit allergic to vulnerability. What was most impactful to me is just the things that we carry from relationship to relationship, how they color every relationship that we move through, and then it's just nothing happens in isolation. I think this was just like a fantastic reminder that nothing happens in isolation, and we are all impacted by the hurts and harms of those who have impacted those that we it's just also cyclical. And yeah, it's just a really wonderful character study. And usually I feel like I'm not a big fan of books that have like a ton of characters, but I think what Nisha has taught me and sort of helped me elucidate in my own reading and what I like is that I think a lot of contemporary novels rely on plot to be the thing that rivets you. And in general, I am more interested in the character study. What are the choices that a character makes? And often that is the landscape within itself, and that can be very riveting. But a lot of the books that I have been reading, the books that are like heavy on interiority, have focused on like this one person and their inner world. And even if there are characters in the story, it always feels very isolated and it always feels very lonely. And we're not really, I don't know, the relationships with other people are almost incidental. But I think Irish novels take it a level further, because instead of looking at the individual in isolation, it is very interested in how people relate to one another and how inextricable we are from each other, whether it be a positive or a negative. Every relationship informs the next relationship, and we are like an amalgamation of all of those relationships. Yeah, it's difficult to isolate that and to not take that into consideration. I'm thinking back to Rooney, and Rooney was so interested in not like the individual, but how the individual plays off of others and how there is no action without others. We're all connected, and Irish novels do it well. I think Nisha does it really well. Yeah, I am in love. I mean, I even kind of want to say like Megan Nolan, my love, I am sorry, but Nisha has kind of wriggled her way maybe like right next to you in the chair. It's so funny because
because I was looking up Nisha Dolan and there was a roundtable interview, which I couldn't find the actual interview for because I was like, oh, I want to watch them in conversation with each other. But it was with Nisha Dolan, Megan Nolan, and Nicole Flattery, who wrote a collection of short stories, but she has just come out with a novel called Nothing Special, which I have received and actually wanted to read. And they are these like early 30-something millennial writers who are being presented as the contemporary voice, a contemporary voice in Irish literature. And I thought that was so funny because it just happened to line up with the kind of books that I have been really interested in as of late. And yeah, and they were just talking about books being about relationships and the weight and pressure of a second novel after their debut. I thought it was just really funny that they are sort of in conversation and in a cohort together. I was very curious about Nisha Dolan because I was like, her insights, like, does she study behavioral science? Is she a psycho? Like, what? How? And she's autistic. I think that does explain her level of insight. And I don't know, I really enjoy her voice. I just like deeply relate to intellectualizing every single emotion and not letting it sit as an emotion and just having to overanalyze everything and be hyper aware of every dynamic and every differential in a relationship and being a student of that dynamic and differential. So I relate to her on a spiritual level. And I think I, fortunately or unfortunately, interrogate every single interaction I have in much the same way that she does. And I feel very seen by the inner workings of all of these characters and how their brains work. There were some really great little pulls of text and one-liners. As far as I know, Archie was your first serious relationship, Vivian continued, and Archie thought you should put up with his nonsense because that's love. Love is letting people hurt you. Archie must have learned it from someone too. We're all taught it, but some of us get over it and some of us terrorize the general population well into our 20s and beyond. And the characters, it's like a spectrum of adjustment, and some are more well adjusted than others, which is always a lot of fun to live alongside for a book. So yeah, I'm just super grateful again to Echo for sending this over, grateful for Nisha for putting this out there. Yeah, really enjoyed this, really enjoyed her work. I'm super excited for anything else that she puts out. I'm also just like super excited about continuously finding new authors to be excited about. So I think that concludes this little reading vlog. Thanks so much for hanging out. You know the drill. What are you reading? Is it good? Should I pick it up too? And we'll see each other soon.